So we are going to start something different today, but we'll continue from where we stopped. So we are on day 7. So I'm going to create a new Jupyter script, and I'm going to save it as lesson day 8. So now I'm saving it as lesson day lesson day 8 now. Alright, so what we are going to do is to refresh what we have been doing. Are you getting it now? Based on function. So to get more space, I can clear this. So I can remove this, remove that. So we are doing a positional function. That's what we have been doing since, which is, for example, def, then the name of the function, isn't it? So let's say we have a function, and the sole purpose of the function is to format name. Okay, so let's say it's to format name, and the function takes in first name and it takes in surname. Okay, so that's what the function does, and we are going to do something with the name. Okay, so let me give you the bigger picture. I want the name to be something like Said Bello. Are you getting it? Said, comma, Bello. So that is the way I want the name to be. So which means that when the persons put in a name, right, we can use our F string that we talked about, or we can even say first name is equals to first name dot capitalize, right? We have a function like this that we've learned before, right? Capitalize will ensure that only the first character is in capital while the rest are in small letter. Then we can do the same thing for the surname. I'll say the first name, the surname also is surname dot capitalize. Okay? Then at the end of the day, we want to print out something like this. So we use our F string, isn't it now? So the F string will take a parameter which is the first name, then we want to put comma here, okay, then a space here, then we put the surname. So I can clean this now. You know that if I need to select my kernel, so let me take the version of Python I want. So Ctrl Z. Now if I should run this now, it's not going to do anything. That's because we have not invoked or we have not called the function, isn't it? So nothing is going to happen, so except we call it. So we are going to come here and say the name of our function, then I'll put in Said here, comma, then I'll put Bello here. So we expect that this format will do something with these two args or two arguments that has been passed through it, and it's going to display something. And you can see it takes in this, and this is what we call positional argument. So what happened here is that here the parameter, the first parameter, which is first name, is mapped to the first argument. Which is Said. I hope you get it now. So you understand that, oh, when you see first name, just understand that first name is Said. That's why I call it positional function. So it uses position. Then the other one again is that we can say that we can duplicate this and say that. So this our spelling of first is wrong. Then we say the second parameter, which is surname, is mapped to the second argument, which is what? Bello. So we know that these are string method that is working on it. So that works for anyone who is using this function. I don't know if you get it now. So that's one aspect of positional argument. We can do another types of function, which is keywords arguments or keyword functions. So in keyword function, what we have is that in place of in our call of the functions, are you getting it? In calling the function, okay, we are going to make use of the parameter, the function parameter, as the key. Okay, how do we do that? How do we do what we just said? So I'm going to now say format name. So instead of format name now, I'm going to say first name is equals to, are you getting it now? So when I say first name is equals to John, for example, then I can say that surname is equals to Doe. Are you getting it now? So if I run this now, you see John Doe, because now it's very clear when I'm running the code, because I can be able to know exactly what parameter I'm supplying argument to. I don't know if you get it now. Another way we can look at it is this. Let's try if we mismatch this now. So let's say we say format name, and this time around I can say surname, sorry. I will now say surname, and the surname is equals to Mary or Dawn. Yeah, let's say Mary, or let's still use Willie here, Willie as surname. Okay, and we say first name is Jenny. Okay, so if we run this now, we can see that even though we make first name not the first args, but it still return it as Jenny Willie, not Willie Jenny, because we are using keywords argument. I don't know if it's clear now. So that is one thing about the advantage of using keywords over positional arguments. I don't know if you get it now. Then another thing again is that if you have many parameters and you are expecting users to supply plenty parameters, okay, then it is important that you make use of keywords so that you don't make mistake in the order at which you are supplying those arguments. I hope you get it now. So let's give another example now. Let's say we have a country, or let's say countries, okay, and give me examples of countries. So we have Nigeria, okay, another Ghana. We have Cote. How do you spell it? Well, I think we can spell it Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast. Like this. Is it like this? Then we have what? Senegal. Like this? Is this the spelling? I don't think so. Senegal. Then what again? Mali. Then we have what again? Gambia. What other one? Okay, let's say South Africa. So let's say now we want to filter based on some criteria. Okay, so let's say task. Our task is filter out country that meets a certain criteria. So let's think of a criteria. Let's say we want to filter based on, so I can put this escape sign here so that, okay. Now, what we can think of is that, let's say we want to filter out some countries that start with a particular letter. Are you getting it now? So there's something we use, there's a method of it, there's a string method used called start with, okay? So let me just give an example here. Let's say I have a country, okay? Just a country as an example. And I said the country is Nigeria, okay? So if I want to know whether Nigeria starts with N, are you getting it now? I can say country dot start with. Then I'll put in the character that I want to check. So it will give me a boolean of either true or false. So, but if I say Nigerian, does it start with F? This country, does it start with F, for example? It will give me false. So that means we can use it in our if statement, because our if statement expects true or false condition. So now let's build this up stepwisely. So I want to check this now. So that means I need to loop, right? So let's have our algorithm set up. So the first thing I want to do is, number one is I want to loop over the list, isn't it? Now I want to check, so 2 is to check the country, check each country, check the first letter of each countries. Have you? Then the last thing is, to now filter by appending to a new list. So that is it. Those are the 3 steps. So let's implement the first step. So we are going to say so we can say for item or for country, you know, this is our iterator, so we can give it any name. For countries in countries, okay? So country will give us each element at a time. So we can say for country in country. So let's create, let's say these are filtered countries here as a empty list. So we can say for country in countries, I'll come back here, indentation is very important. So we are going to say if, right? If country, that is what we are holding at present, the first country or whatever type of country. If we start with what? So that means we need to have our filter letter, right? So let's say our filter letter is N. So let's put Niger here too, so that we can have Niger. Abi? So if country does start with letter N, for example, so this is a condition, right? So we are going to do something. So we are going to say filter countries dot append. So we are going to append the country into it, because the country is holding each element at a time on each iteration. So if we run this now, and we now say print filtered countries now. If we run it now, we can see that we have Nigeria. Okay? But because I didn't run this, because it doesn't have Niger. So that's the reason why only Nigeria is out. So if I rerun it now, we are going to see Nigeria and Niger. So now let's turn this into a function now, okay? So now we can, so let us turn the above procedure into a function. So how do we do that? So we say def, isn't it? The name of our function, so let's call it country filter, and our country filter takes in array, isn't it? Or let's say it takes in data, right? So we pass the data into it, and what does it do with this data? So we are going to just pick this one, isn't it? And we are just going to paste here, right? The indentation is very important. Don't forget that my if statement exists in the scope of my for loop. So I'm going to indent this. Then this condition exists inside the if, so I'll indent it. So that is how I arrange it. But we don't have filter countries now. Should we put filter country outside the function or inside the function? So it exists inside the function because the function is a standalone. Is that clear? So we are putting this one inside the function. So we put this, sorry. So maybe I just type it here, filtered countries. And it's not existing in the for loop scope. I hope you get it now, so that it doesn't recreate empty list each time. So because it's not a global variable, it can be accessed here. Okay? Now, if we do this now, we are not going to get anything if we do this. So there's something else again. You know, we are at coding. It means that this function only filter out only n. I hope you get it now. But if now we want to get filtered country, we want to get it out. So that means at the end of the for loop, that means on the same side as the for loop, we need to print filtered countries. I hope you get it now. So if we run this now, and we can now call the function now. So let us call the country filter function. So we can do this by saying country filter. Then we can say data is equals to countries, right? Right? Or we use our positional argument, whichever one that we are used to. So when we run it, it works. Okay? So it works because that's exactly what we intended. So we can modify this now using what we call return. Okay? Or before we even move to return, let us modify this above function. So let us modify it. So let us modify the country filter function to accept two args. Okay? I want to accept two args. That is two arguments. So what do we do now? So we are going to build it again. So we can call it country filter updated, right? Just to differentiate it with. So in place of n here that we are coding, we can say that this also takes in filter letter. Are you getting it now? It takes in filter letter, and we can even say it takes in letter, right? But filter letter I think is more descriptive. Then in place of this we can say filter data here, which means that here we are not restricted to only use this function for only country that starts with n. So we can pass in anything into start with, provided that it is a string, right? So we can do this again by now calling this function now, so I say country filter, or how do we call it? Country filter updated. And I'm going to say data. And you know, here now, because I'm using positional argument, I can even put my filter in the first argument. So that is the advantage of. So let's look at what country should we filter out. Let's say we want to filter a country that starts with S. We have two S here, luckily. So let's say we want S. Then we can say data is equals to, what's it called now? Data is countries, right? Because we have a list above called countries. So let's run it and see now. See, it works. If you look at here, we didn't add code like before. Are you getting it now? Because this one now supports two arguments, right? There's something wrong here, which is not correct. This is supposed to be data. Come on. Are you getting it now? This is supposed to be data for country in data, right? It's supposed to be for country in what? Data. Because it's expecting you this parameter data. So I'm very surprised why. Okay, I think I understand what happened. So this is supposed to be data as well. The reason why it runs is because country exists. Are you getting it now? The reason why the code ran is because the country itself exists outside the function. Okay? So that is what I'm saying now. But if I did mean that countries did not exist, it will have thrown us error. Are you getting that? Because it will be expecting a parameter here. Okay? That will be iterating over. So the mistake must be corrected. Okay? So that is how it ought to be. Okay? So now we can now do what we call, because all of the functions we are doing since is not returning anything. Okay? So now let us write functions that returns something. So we expect our function to perform something, and at the end of the day should return it, because I told you about print. Print is just for you. So you that you are working on something, you need to be able to take hold of whatever the operation the function is doing. So the printing is not going to do anybody good except the programmer. Okay? So now let's start with the very elementary function we had. So let's create two functions. I mean a function that maybe multiplies. So it multiplies or it doubles number. Anytime you enter a number, it doubles it. Okay? So now, so we define a function def, and the name of the function is called dubnum as an example. Okay? So now what it does is that, or let's call it twice num, twice num. So twice num takes in a number, or let's call it num, or value, for example. Takes in a value, and we can say that result is equals to value. You know, we have done this before, star 2, right? So the spelling of the value is wrong. So that means it square it, it times 2 it. That is what it does. I can say value multiplied by value, right? Whichever one we want to say. They will not say return. This is, so that is raised to power, yes, raised to power 2. So we say return result. So what this does is that it's different from what we have been doing before. It means now I can assign a value into twice num, and it's going to give the result. Okay? Now let's run it now. So let's say I have answer. I can create a variable called answer. Okay? And I'll say answer is equals to twice num. Then I can say that the value is equals to 7, right? So 7 times 7, that is what we want to find out. So when I say print answer now, So we expect that it's going to print us the answer, which is what? 49. So the difference between this particular function, what makes it different from our previous function is this line, return. All of our previous functions has no return value. Okay? Now let's make use of this function that we call updated. And let's turn it into a return functions. Okay? So let's come here and build the same functions now. Or we come here and say, okay, we want to create a function. Abigail, what happened?